Hi. So today I'm reacting to or commenting to this video. The video is titled, How Could Satan Have Sinned When He Was in Heaven? So let's get into it.
In heaven, if we're not going to sin, we're not going to have sinful thoughts, bad thoughts. How did Lucifer think to go against God? How did he decide that he wanted to be God if he was in heaven and we're not going to have sinful thoughts?
Yeah.
And then with that also goes with angels. How do they decide to go with the devil? And then is there free will in heaven? Are all angels in heaven, or are some outside the realm of heaven? And then how can angels switch from going inside heaven to outside the realm of heaven?
Was this 8-year-old a demon? Gee, what kind of question? Wow.
I know, right?
That kid is thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, those are great questions. And I think when it comes to how could Satan have fallen being in the presence of God, first of all, the Bible doesn't really tell us, right? In fact, we don't even know how many angels went with him until you're in Revelation 13 or something, right? There's not a lot in the Old Testament about the fall of Satan. Some try and say, well, it might be embedded in, Isaiah 14 or Isaiah 28, and that's disputed or not when it talks about the king of Babylon and all this. But we don't really know. The Bible doesn't tell us. Yeah. Although it seems to me it would make sense that in order for God to give these creatures free choice, he had to have some distance between them. He had to give them an opportunity not to see his full glory, but to give them an opportunity to make a decision whether they're going to follow him or not.
Okay, I just want to make a little comment before I continue to play the video. You see, one of the things that free will does is that it gives you an opportunity to choose. It gives you an opportunity to choose. Now, you don't know you have free will until you have that opportunity to choose. What that simply means by inference is that every angel that is in heaven right now is supposed to be there, because at one stage or the other, they were tested. It wasn't just Lucifer, it wasn't just these other angels. They were tested. They were allowed to go. They were allowed to fall. They were allowed to do many things. Now, another of the question that she asked that I want to talk about is, did God create sin, or how did he come? How was Satan able to sin in heaven? You see, sin is a state of disobedience. That is, sin does not exist unless there is a law. So it's not as if God created sin, but God created a platform where it is possible to sin. Because if it's not possible to sin, then it's not possible to be righteous. You see, unless there's that, there must be a comparison. Because when you say someone is sinless, it means there's a comparison in opposition to someone who is sinful. So in this case, when we say sin in heaven, Satan was given an opportunity to go against the law. Because even if God knows that this man is going to commit a sin, if you have not yet committed it, you can still argue and say, it's just in my mind, I just feel like it. So God might even allow you to go. That's why a lot of time you see a lot of people are saying, God, why didn't you stop Adam and Eve before they took their... If it had stopped them, a lot of time you would have even been surprised. You would have seen that they would say, I wouldn't have taken it. You see, so God allows you to go. God allows you so that the depth of your heart will be shown to you, not to him. He already knows where you are going to go. So the idea that Satan sinned in heaven, in fact, I believe that is why God changed the way he created things. He wanted everybody to see why he was going to create like this. You see, everything God does is for a reason. For example, the first covenant he gave it not because he didn't know the perfect covenant to bring in immediately. In fact, he already said the perfect covenant. But if he did that, most people will not comprehend or appreciate what has happened. You see, a person only appreciates water when it's thirsty. If you are not at that level, you can't appreciate it. So you must go through it first for you to appreciate it. Let us continue with the video.
Because freedom requires the ability to make a choice one way or the other. And if God overwhelms them with his presence, then they might not have that choice.
So is that heaven and the heaven we're going to be in, are those going to be like, are those two different heavens?
Oh, you mean in the previous?
Yeah.
Well, it might not be. Well, our ultimate heaven is a new heaven and a new earth. Yeah. So before the universe was created, God was in heaven, so to speak, his dwelling place. God creates the universe, and heaven ultimately is going to be a renewed earth and a renewed universe where we're going to have physical bodies. We're not going to be Casper the Friendly Ghost. We're going to have physical bodies, glorified bodies that never decay. That's our ultimate destiny. Now, people that die now, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. They, in some sense, go to be with the Lord now, but that's not ultimate heaven. Ultimate heaven is a physical place, not an ethereal place. So it's a different place than where Satan and the angels were, because that was an immaterial realm. This is going to be a physical realm, ultimate heaven. Now, will we have free will in heaven? It seems to me we will, but we'll have... First of all, we won't have a sin nature. And secondly, we won't have any desire to sin because we won't have any need to sin. In the sense...
Let me stop there and talk about it. I've already said a little bit about this before, but you see, the difference between the creation of man in heaven and the creation of Satan in heaven is this. He was not tested before he got to heaven. You see, that was the same thing with Adam. Adam was not tested before he got the power. He just got it from when he was created. He was already a man. Whereas we are going from this tested place. So we have qualified. And what that means is that God has the right now. So I don't know what's the right word to use, to take over your will, because you have surrendered it. You see, when you surrendered your will, then God can take that will for himself. But when you are still on earth as we are now, our will is still our own. That is why the true Christianity is not just escaping, say, I accept Jesus to escape earth. No, you are supposed to make Jesus your Lord. So that Lordship, you are going to carry it into the next place. What that does is that it's going to renew you. You are going to be a new person. The idea, you see, many people think that God is going to force you not to sin. No, you will not have even the thought. The thought of sin won't come to you. It's like somebody that doesn't like to eat rice. And you now tell him that, do you know that you will not eat rice? He will like, so I don't want it in the first place. So that idea will not even come to you. Let's continue.
That we won't want anything we don't have. We'll have everything we need. The reason we sin now, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, is usually just one of three things, or a combination thereof: sex, money, or power, relationships, finances, or pride, or power, those kind of things.
And I want to talk about that again. You see, everything he just listed is a composite of the flesh. The flesh is driven by money. And when I say money, it's not necessarily cash. It's like the desire to acquire, to just acquire. Even if, have you seen billionaires that they are still crying that they lost money because there's this desire in the flesh to just acquire things, not necessarily to give or to help people, just to acquire. Sex is just like the biology. So these things are just like the fallen nature of man is what we call the flesh, is a spirit component that empowers the desire of the natural man. You see, an antelope, let me use an antelope, or a lion, doesn't think of complex things. He's just gets food in the morning, sleep and survive, sex for the next generation. But when you become a complex being, that is not just a normal, you can't just have that kind of life anymore. Let's continue.
Take shortcuts to get those good things. Those are good things, right? Sex, money, and power are good things. But we take shortcuts to get them here on earth because we don't have them. In heaven, we won't have any deficiencies. We won't have any need to sin. We'll see God for who he is, 1 John 3, 1 and 2, the beatific vision, and there won't be any need to sin or desire to sin.
So with Lucifer, so that gets me thinking, did he actually create / start sin, or was it there before? Was it called sin? Was it something that God was what he did? Was it sin.
Lucifer's free choice to disobey God was sinful, yes.
So
And then
where
Adam and
did
Eve.
sin, so did God create sin?
No. God creates the possibility of sin by giving us free will, right?
Yeah.
But he's not the sinner.
No.
Just like when we have children, we create the possibility that children will sin, but when they sin, we don't cause the sin. We just create we're the instrumental cause through which God creates people. And when we choose to have children, we're not causing them to sin, but we're, by creating them, giving them the opportunity to sin.
So, yeah. Okay, that was a nice video. So the last point that he made there, which was what I also made, once there is law, sin becomes possible. Sin is just disobedient to the laws of God. That disobedience could come in the form of falling below his expectation. It could come in form of blatant, is that the word? Blatant disobedience. It could come before me even ignorance. That is, God has an expectation of you, and you just, so sin is a state where a man disobeys God, is a way, is when a man leaves God. Praise God. So that was a nice video. Subscribe to this channel. Like, share, subscribe. God bless.